because the U.S. is a country of laws. I don't like witch hunts or the Al Capone standard, but I know you have to go.
Well, go ahead and keep defending a pedophile. That's fine. That's your legacy. That will not be mine.
This is the exact moment when Nancy Mace completely loses patience and goes straight for the jugular. No hesitation, no soft language, just direct, brutal accountability. You can hear the shift instantly. The tone changes, the pressure rises, and suddenly the host isn't in control anymore. This wasn't a normal political disagreement. This was a full-scale confrontation over one of the most explosive scandals in modern political history.
Bill Clinton tomorrow, what do you hope to learn?
Well, I think this is really a story, and I disagree almost entirely with your monologue introduction there. But this is really a story of the haves versus the have-nots. The Clintons demanded that our Congressional Oversight Committee come to New York, travel to New York, hundreds of media, because they're too good, too entitled, and too privileged to come to Washington, D.C. to do this deposition, to have these subpoenas happen and have this testimony in this hearing. And I got to tell you, you know, I'm glad that Secretary Clinton came today. She sat there for hours. We went tit for tat. I went 3 rounds with the secretary. And I will tell you that some of the information I felt was obfuscated. And I think that Bill Clinton knows more than what he will let on tomorrow. But this is about the powerful versus the powerless. And you say, just let it slide, let it just go by the wayside, because these people are powerful and they're political, and this is just the product of mutual destruction.
The interview begins calmly, but you can already sense tension building underneath the surface.
But there are a lot of women here. There are over 1,000 women that are victims of Jeffrey Epstein. We had Alexander Acosta in Florida, let him off the hook. For what reason?
A couple of things.
With no federal charges. I mean, this is a huge story. And it doesn't.
I agree with you. I agree with you. It is a huge story. My curiosity is why it is a matter for Congress. But a few things. You're telling me that all of this, everything to get Hillary Clinton to come testify, and the most you have is a complaint that a couple members of Congress had to get on an airplane?
No, that's not what I said at all. I'm just saying the entitlement there. This is the powerful versus the powerless, the rich versus those who are poor. Yeah, well, yeah, I led with that because I see this as us versus them. I'm from Goose Creek, South Carolina. I am a survivor. And I've seen in my own case and other cases, whether it's murder cases, cases of sexual assault, pedophilia in my state and in states across the country, those who are doing wrong, who are connected, always get away with the crime. And that is the epitome of the Jeffrey Epstein case. I think we should talk to everyone.
The host attempts to steer the conversation, framing the issue in a way that softens the real accountability.
Republican and Democrat alike, including Howard Lutnick, who I asked Secretary Clinton about today, what their involvement was, what they knew, when they knew it, how they knew it, and why. I just don't understand why this is okay in America. It's not.
We are, though, a nation of laws, ma'am. We're not a nation of guilt by association. And never before has Congress taken the investigative...
You don't think these are potential witnesses? If a president flew on the Lolita Express or Epstein's plane 17 to 26 times, a former president, you don't think we should ask him questions about who was giving him a massage and were they underage?
I don't know why that's
Even Kevin Spacey had something to say about how uncomfortable and inappropriate it was. When a gay guy says that about women being on a plane, you know it's a red flag.
I don't know how it's the purview of Congress. To me, it's the purview of the Justice Department. I'm trying to figure out why...
Who's done nothing, by the way, and they haven't even released all the files. Millions of files have not been released, terabytes of data.
Is it possible that the reason that Justice Departments of both parties never indicted anyone because there was not enough evidence to indict someone? Is that not a possibility?
No.
But Nancy Mace immediately resists the framing and starts correcting the narrative with precision.
So you're sure there's crimes that have been committed?
100%. Have you seen any of the video interviews?
So
you're sure
there's other men who there is evidence that they are guilty of a crime, of a sex crime beyond a reasonable doubt?
I am absolutely positive of that. I believe that women who've come forward in the Epstein, because of evidence I've seen, the victims I've spoken to, And look, I'm a survivor,
why haven't
and I'm
we
not
heard-
going to sit here and water down the stories of survivors and say every woman that comes forward, Leland, shouldn't be believed. And that's what essentially what you're saying right now.
No, ma'am,
and
I'm not.
I want to.
And
no,
you know how much, no, ma'am, you know how much respect I have for you.
You're saying there's no evidence of anything.
No, you know how much respect I have for you, and you know how much respect I have for your story and what you've been through, which to me makes it all the more important, which is why are we not dealing with a specific accusation against a specific person who is accused of a crime? That's how America works. Someone comes up, this person committed a crime.
She refuses to allow the discussion to be diluted, pushing the conversation toward uncomfortable truths.
You don't. There's not a witch hunt of just because someone happened to be on an island sometime.
I'm going to take you back.
They get pulled before Congress.
To the early 2000s when Alexander Acosta indicted Jeffrey Epstein, convicted him on one count of soliciting an underage child for sex. Okay, one. Do you know how many women came forward that were underage teenagers that they interviewed, that the state law enforcement division interviewed in Florida? Over 50, okay? And they convicted him on one. Why is that? And why was it that Alexander Acosta did a deal that wouldn't allow the feds to indict Jeffrey Epstein? And I think at the bottom of this, is he an asset? Is he not? Was the files and the videos that he had that have not been put out yet, by the way. He had lockers full, storage units full of videos and audio that have somehow disappeared.
You've thrown an awful lot of smoke out in no fire. There's all of these different data points that point to a conspiracy, except the evidence of the actual conspiracy. Why has Alex Acosta been called to testify before the House Oversight Committee?
I believe he testified in the fall, but I'm going to tell you, I have been to the DOJ 3 times, Leland.
The host grows more defensive, trying to regain control as the pressure steadily increases.
In the documents that I want to see naming co-conspirators in this prostitution, sex trafficking, and human trafficking ring, the names of those co-conspirators are still redacted. You know who they're redacted by? The Southern District of New York. So there may appear to be smoke to you, but as someone who's been to the files, seen the files, unredacted, names are still redacted because this will go down as one of the biggest cover-ups in American history.
Congresswoman, you've
and
never...
here you are defending pedophiles, against women who have been wronged by rich and powerful men, political men, and it's disgusting.
Congresswoman, for me to be defending for me to be defending pedophiles, you would have to be naming the pedophiles, and you're not. And there's a reason for that, which is
they're redacted. The names are redacted in the files.
You claim
I'm telling
that you've seen the names.
I have seen lists of names. I've seen lists of people who might be co-conspirators. I've seen lists of people of witnesses. I've seen lists of victims. I've seen lists of people. The DOJ and the FBI have many lists of people.
So
and
you're
there are
saying
even
that
lists
you're
of people that were in a lineup.
Okay, and by the way,
Mace stays calm, but her words become sharper, signaling that she's no longer tolerating deflection.
there is such a thing as being named as a possible co-conspirator and not being indicted because there is not evidence to do so. You're accusing me of
and
trying...
do you know why people were not indicted, Leland? Do you know why people were not indicted? Because they were given immunity. Yes, because they were given immunity so that nobody gets charged with a crime. And in fact, you'll see people, I believe, that the Oversight Committee will bring in Leon Black and others, maybe Bill Gates, that I believe will have more information too, just like the Clintons.
So let me just ask you this question. Why, and I've been fascinated by this, why have none of these women come out publicly and said, Jeffrey Epstein trafficked me to this rich and powerful man, I'm suing him, or I want him charged? If what you're saying is true, if there's all of these victims out there who were trafficked to other men, shouldn't a couple of them have come out by now?
Virginia Giuffre Roberts did that, and she's dead. And I have spoken to other victims who are deathly afraid to name some of the individuals, particularly those who are politically influential, maybe former prime ministers and other dignitaries overseas. They're deathly afraid of naming some of those individuals. And I know personally...
The conversation shifts toward the deeper implications surrounding Jeffrey Epstein and the people connected to him.
That when you name names,
Prince Andrew's
as
been
a
named.
victim, when you get and when you're a survivor, I'm going to tell you, Leland, when you name names, you get sued. I'm in the middle of living that real-time nightmare. Myself and the other 2 women who came forward in my own case are all being sued. When you name names, that's what happens as a woman when you come forward.
If
which
you
is
go
why
to the
we're
FBI
doing this interview
and
tonight to water down the truth and the experiences and the rapes of these women in the Epstein files. It harms women, not just in the United States,
is
but
not
around the
watering down.
world.
If the accusations can't hold up to the no, I'm not. If the accusations can't stand up to a cable news interview, how are they going to stand up in court to bring any of these people to justice?
Name the last person that raped a woman that got convicted.
Now the stakes are clear, and the host begins struggling to counter her direct accusations. Every attempt to interrupt or redirect only strengthens her position and exposes the tension.
And the Epstein saga is, I think, emblematic of a nationwide problem, a cultural problem that we have when a woman comes forward. She is a liar, and you know what? We're going to denigrate her reputation because the person that she's accusing is an honest person. And it's just not the case. And I say that as a survivor who's fighting for other survivors, including the Epstein victims. And I think we should interview everyone, Republican and Democrat alike, should come before our committee to get to the bottom of this. How did this happen? How are other foreign countries arresting people that we're not? England is doing more than we ever have.
Because the U.S. is a country of laws. I don't like witch hunts or the Al Capone standard, but I know you have to go.
Well, go ahead and keep defending a pedophile. That's fine. That's your legacy. That will not be mine.
Okay. I'll let you make the accusation, Congresswoman. You're always welcome back. Thank you very much. I know you have a heart out. We'll pick this up the next time.
I'll always come back. Thank you, Leland.
You can feel the breaking point approaching as both sides prepare for a decisive moment. What just happened here wasn't just another cable news argument. This was a rare moment where the usual script completely collapsed. Normally, these interviews follow a predictable pattern. The host controls the pace, the guest responds carefully, and nothing truly explosive happens. But this time was different. Nancy Mace refused to play along. She didn't dodge. She didn't soften her language. She confronted the issue head-on, forcing everyone watching to confront the reality of what was being discussed. You could see the shift, not just in her words, but in the energy of the entire exchange. The host went from confident to defensive. The rhythm of the conversation broke down. And once that happens, the illusion of control disappears. That's when real moments happen. Moments that aren't rehearsed, moments that aren't filtered, moments that reveal how people truly react under pressure. This is why this confrontation is gaining so much attention, because it wasn't polished, it wasn't safe, it wasn't predictable, it was raw, direct, and impossible to ignore. Nancy Mace made it clear that she wasn't there to protect narratives or avoid discomfort, she was there to force accountability. And whether you agree with her or not, one thing is undeniable, she completely changed the dynamic of the interview. By the end, the balance of power had shifted. The host was no longer leading the conversation, she was, and that's why this moment stands out. Not because it was loud, but because it was decisive.